What's going on, Devils fans? Happy Monday. And yes, it is, as always, your host, your best friend, your confidant, and your number one source, Neil Villapiano. And welcome to another edition of the Devil's State of Mind podcast, right here on the Hockey Podcast Network, as well as Sports Wire Radio, the best place to get everything you need to know about your first adversity of the year, New Jersey Devils. And as always, Devils fans, I hope you're having a fantastic day, even though it was a tough road trip for the Devils. But regardless, wherever you're watching this episode, and thank you as always for taking time out of your day to check these episodes out. You guys know, as always, that I greatly appreciate all the love and support. Shout out to our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook. And guys, again, with so much going on right now, the NHL season, we got the NBA season just kicked underway, NFL, still college football, college basketball is kicking off very, very soon. DraftKings is your number one place to get in on all the huge cash prizes. And all you got to do is sign up with our promo code THPN. Again, promo code THPN. Bet $5. And if your bet wins, you get $300 instantly in risk-free bets. It is the best place. I promise you it's the best place to get in on the huge money prizes. And again, signing up at DraftKings Sportsbook using our promo code THPN. And as always, make sure, Devils fans, to bet responsibly. Do apologize if I have a little bit of a cough. Been dealing with been a little bit under the weather the last couple of days. Been dealing with something, nothing too serious. As you can tell, I still got my energy for the most part. Still been able to put out a lot of content over on our social media platforms. And as always, thank you guys for that support over there as well. Now, let's get to today. So, yeah, the Devils, as you could tell by this, the name of this episode, West Coast Woes, the Devils once again did not have themselves a good West Coast road trip, as for the first time in the early season here, the Devils are facing a little bit of adversity and some uncertainty as well in terms of a couple of things. And we'll get into that in just a little bit, but we'll recap the 4 games on this road trip that the Devils just had. I'm also going to talk about, as we have to talk about it, the Jacob Markstrom contract extension that happened back on Halloween. I also want to shout out someone on Twitter who I feel like had the pretty much the perfect breakdown of where the Devils are at this point in the season. And then last but certainly not least, as we normally like to do, just going to look ahead to what's going forward here for the Devils this week in terms of games. So as always, Devils fans, we got a bunch to get to here on the Devil's State of Mind podcast. So let's not waste any more time and get rolling. And we will get rolling and drop the puck with, again, we're going to recap the Devils' 4-game road trip with 3 of the games out on the West Coast. We'll start with the second game of a 2-game series between the New Jersey Devils and the Colorado Avalanche. Devils looking to try to extend their winning streak to 9 games. Did the Devils do that? Unfortunately, they did not, as in a very, very, very ugly game, the Devils got beaten down pretty badly at the hands of the Colorado Avalanche, ending the Devils' winning streak at 8 games and handing them just their second loss of the early season. And yeah, the Devils, they really didn't come out to play all that much in this one, as the Avalanche dominated. You got to give the Devils credit. You got to give them credit for the fact that they were actually able to fight back to cut the deficit from 5-0 to 5-4, but ultimately could not get any closer. Let up a late goal in the period to go down 6-4, and then things just continued to get worse in that one. Devils gave up a total of 8 goals, and Jacob Markstrom finally making his return to the ice after injuries, and yeah, he did not look good. And quite frankly, the entire team as a collective, especially defensively, looked awful in this one. It was just not a pretty sight from the start. And it was very frustrating and disappointing to have the winning streak end the way that it did. But nonetheless, you were still able to show some flashes, and you were hopeful that the Devils could take away from that one with some positives. The biggest thing that I really enjoyed was that goal that Jack Hughes scored with the no look through the legs behind the back pass to Bratt, who fed it back to Hughes for the goal. I mean, they scored some pretty impressive highlight reel goals, despite obviously coming away with that loss. So, yeah, not the way you wanted to start the road trip. And obviously we knew at some point that the winning streak was going to come to an end. I just don't think anybody wanted to see the winning streak end as aggressively as it ended up doing in that loss to Colorado. But that concluded that game, and then so the Devils moved on to San Jose to take on the Sharks. It had been less than a week since these two teams had faced one another in New Jersey. Devils getting the win in that one, and the Devils were certainly hoping to try to get a bounce back victory here and get themselves their first win on this road trip. And that did not happen, as once again, the Devils struggled out the gate, going down 3-0, including giving up a breakaway goal by William Eklund on the first shot of the game to give the Sharks the lead, and they would not look back, as even though the Devils were able to get a couple of goals in this one, courtesy of Dawson Mercer, again, getting down by 3 goals early like that was going to be very, very difficult. And the Devils dominated that second period, and they just couldn't find the back of the net. And ultimately, they ended up giving up 2 goals in that period to make it 5-1. And really, it just put the game out of reach. And even though the Devils, for already the second time this year, did not give up a shot in a period, second time against the San Jose Sharks, again, they could not find a way to come back, as they ultimately dropped this one 5-2 in San Jose. And again, just getting off to a slow start. And that's something that we have grown, unfortunately, accustomed to seeing from this Devils team, just not really getting themselves off on the right foot. Very frustrating. And you were hoping, especially when Sheldon Keefe talked about how he wasn't going to be too critical of his team after the 8-4 loss to Colorado. He was really curious to see the kind of response that the team was going to give him in this game against the Sharks, and it wasn't a good one. Quite frankly, it was not a good one. And what's been very, very obvious, especially with Brett Pesce being out for at least a month, it's glaringly obvious that his presence is sorely missed on the back end. And we'll get into that a little bit more at the end of this recap here. But, off to a really rough start in this road trip, dropping the first 2 games. And so now you go into LA and Anaheim looking to try to salvage this road trip here and try to find a way to get some confidence back after these 2 games. And so the Devils on Saturday night were in Los Angeles against the Kings. And again, you were hoping for a better response. And the Devils, for the most part, gave a better response. So they come away with the 4-1 win over the Kings. Jacob Markstrom, with his best game of the season and maybe one of his better performances since coming to New Jersey, ended up making 43 saves on 44 shots as the Devils came away with the 4-1 win. What was really impressive was that Dawson Mercer scoring 2 goals in this one, and both of them were shorthanded. One of them was on a 5-on-4 penalty kill, and Dawson Mercer scored on a 2-on-1. The other was an empty netter, as the Kings were on the power play, but they all count the same. And the Devils got that one. And Brian Hallinan gets his first career National Hockey League goal. Didn't really notice it at first that it had gone in, but it found its way into the back of the net. And Hallinan gets the first of, we hope to be many more goals for the New Jersey Devils. So congratulations to Brian Hallinan, Michigan Tech alum, getting that one. That one, I'm sure, big weight off of his shoulders as he's continued to do a decent job on that bottom 6, particularly on that 4th line. And the 4th line getting a goal was massive, was absolutely massive in this one. And again, the Devils coming away with a much-needed victory, their first win on this road trip and their first win on the West Coast in over 2 years. So I'm sure, again, massive weight off of their shoulder. I think the funniest thing, though, from this game was the fact that Game 7 of the World Series in baseball was going on at the same time, and the Los Angeles Dodgers were obviously in it against the Toronto Blue Jays. And in the middle of the game, LA Kings fans started celebrating, and it wasn't because Arseny Gritsiuk had a really good opportunity on a 2-on-1 and made a nice shot that was saved by Kemper. No, it was because the Dodgers found a way to tie the game in the top of the 9th and give themselves an opportunity to come back and win. And then as the Devils were coming off the ice after they had closed out the victory, several players, including Jack Hughes, I think it was Jesper Bratt, Dawson Mercer, and both Sheldon Keefe and Jeremy Colleton were staying on the bench looking up at the Jumbotron because they were showing a side by side of the game and also Game 7 of the World Series. And Dawson Mercer with the fist pump of fist pumps after what it looked like the Blue Jays had scored the game winning run to win the World Series in the bottom of the ninth. As they were walking off and going into the locker room, they saw that the play was under review and that it was ultimately going to be overturned. And as most of us already know, the Dodgers would go on to win the game in extra innings in 10 innings. Luckily, it didn't go 18. The Dodgers winning back-to-back World Series. But it was kind of a funny, humorous kind of moment there, not only during the game, but certainly after. I think the media even asked Sheldon Keefe about all of that um, in the press conference. And by that time, the Blue Jays had ultimately lost. But there were certainly a lot of guys on the Devils that were pulling pulling for the Blue Jays. Obviously, we got a bunch of Canadian boys on our team. But ultimately, the LA Dodgers were the ones that came out victorious. But going back to the game, yes, very important for the Devils to get that win, get themselves to their ninth win of the year, pushing their record to 9-3-0. And then they got themselves ready for the final game of this road trip and the second game of a back to back as they traveled to Anaheim to take on the Ducks. And again, you knew that going into this one, it was a big opportunity for the Devils to finish the road trip 2-2-0, which honestly everybody would have been fine with, and especially because the Devils would have won back-to-back games after losing those two ugly games against Colorado and San Jose. You were hoping again for a similar response that you got from the night before in LA, and that did not happen as the Devils pretty much got beat up in this one to the Anaheim Ducks, losing 4-1. And the reason why I think this was the worst of the four games that they played on this road trip was because of the fact that even though the Devils were stymied many times by the Ducks goaltender Lucas Dostal, they really at times were just getting out hustled, out competed, you know, everything. They looked sluggish. They looked like they were so not into the game. And going down 2-0 in the first period was frustrating, but then he had a couple chances early in the second to cut the deficit to one. You give up that third goal, which really kind of put the game out of reach. And so you just couldn't figure it out. Jack Hughes would end up getting the lone goal in this one to avoid getting shut out. He is now tied with Nathan MacKinnon for the league leading goals with 10. He and McKinnon are the only two with double-digit goals on the year so far. But overall, just not a good one. Jake Allen, I thought was okay, not great. That one goal he gave up on the sharp angle, I'm sure he would have liked that back. I think by all rights, the Ducks should have only scored like two of those four goals legitimately. Not trying to knock on them or anything because they've been a big surprise, big positive surprise in the early going. But yeah, I just think again, the Devils struggled in front of him defensively. They gave up a breakaway goal in this one again, but Jake Allen wasn't that good either. And so the Devils finish their road trip a disappointing 1-3-0. They have now lost three of their last four. And so for the first time in the early going of the season, the Devils are dealing with some adversity. And a lot of it comes from the defense. You're going to have games like this where the offense is still getting stymied and the opposing goaltender is just on one. And Lucas Dostal was certainly on his A game in this one. He ended up getting the first star of the week in the NHL. But nonetheless, there are some glaring issues with this team as we've seen the last couple of games, particularly with the defense. Right now, they look for the most part, like a mess out there on the back end. Jonas Siegenthaler has had a really big struggle over the last couple of games. And you thought with him being more of a defensive defenseman that he would be doing better, but he's not. Especially being paired again with Dougie Hamilton, which we would have thought would have worked because it worked in the past, but apparently it doesn't now for whatever reason. But he hasn't looked good. But the guy who's really struggled the most, I think, is Shimon Nemec. I mean, he made a couple of egregious passes last night in Anaheim. He's really struggled at times not giving up with regards to giving up some odd man rushes going the other way, pinching too much defensively. He's really, really testing a lot of people's patience. I'm seeing it on social media, how many people are just so over Shimon Nemec at this point. And in many ways, I get it. I totally get why people might feel that way. I'm very frustrated. I'm getting to the point where I've had enough of watching Shimon Nemec. He has a couple of good games, and then he goes out and has a couple of really bad games. It's like he's one of those guys where it's like he's either when he's on, he's really on, and when he's off, it's really off, and you can't have that streakiness. You just can't. And I know the Devils have a lot of depth on defense, but they may not have as much defensively as maybe we actually thought. And it's also very obvious again that Brett Pesce being as good as he is defensively and being kind of the catalyst for that success, he's very much being missed right now. And the Devils got to find a way to clean some things up. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be a lot better. It has to be a lot better. You can't be giving up these odd man rushes, these breakaways, and just letting guys easily get around you. You can't do that because you're going to get burned, as the Devils have gotten burned numerous times over the last couple of games. This has to stop. This is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous with how poor it's been. So that needs to be figured out. Couple of things though. I want to take a couple of positives from the game, from the road trip. So despite losing 3 out of 4, the Devils are still currently in first place in the Metropolitan Division, technically tied with the Pittsburgh Penguins, who continue to be one of, if not the biggest surprise in the early going of the NHL. So the fact that the Devils still had those struggles and they're still very much in first place, top 4 in the NHL, that's a good way for everybody to just take a deep breath, not panic. Still early in the year. Devils, again, still banged up with some injuries. Cody Glass, Evgeny Dodonov, the aforementioned Brett Pesce, and others. So those are kind of the positives that you could take away from that. Certainly, without question. And also, Daniel Amoya brought this up on Twitter, and it was also brought up during the MSG broadcast that the Devils have also had very little time to actually have a day off. Really, they've played 8 games in 13 days after that last game in Anaheim, and even the day that they had off um, between the San Jose game and the LA game, the Devils practiced because Sheldon Keefe was obviously not happy with the way his team was playing. So for the first time this year, the Devils get more of an extended break. They don't play again until Thursday, and we'll get into the rest of the schedule for this week coming up. But the Devils will have at least 2 days because they won't practice today. They'll have at least 2 days to practice, work on a lot of things, and get themselves prepared for a big showdown with the young, high-flying, and dangerous Montreal Canadiens. I mean, this is a team that has a lot that's loaded with talent and is on the rise. The Devils have to be raring and ready to go as they have their undefeated record at home on the line. They are 5-0-0 to start the year at home, which is huge to make Prudential Center a hard place for opponents to play. But overall, those are some of the positives. So it's good that the Devils will get some days off to kind of rest and recoup. Also, hopefully give some of our injured guys more time to recover, and we'll see. Connor Brown is day to day, but I think it's very likely he'll be back for the game on Thursday, and we'll see how things go with the rest of the guys moving forward. But that was really where the road trip was. Disappointing to say the least, but no time to panic. Devils still 9-4-0, winners of 9 of their first 13. Everything's fine. Everything is it's fine. No reason to get super worked up now. Let's see how this week goes, and then we'll kind of go from there. All right. Now let's shift to a big piece of news that we got in the around 7 p.m. on Halloween night. It wasn't a trick. It was actually a treat, as we finally got the news on Jacob Markstrom, as the Devils announced that they had signed Jacob Markstrom to a 2-year contract extension at $12 million total, so $6 million average annual value per year. Again, as you can see here. And so, yeah, this was something that was definitely going to happen. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. Right. So that was kind of the thing that we were looking at with all of this is, as we had heard about the Jacob Markstrom potential contract extension since, even before we got the Luke Hughes contract signing announcement. It was very obvious the Devils wanted to keep Markstrom around beyond this year. Markstrom made it clear when speaking to the media that This is the place he wants to be. He loves this organization and wants to be a part of this Devils team, trying to make a push to being a Stanley Cup and hopefully Stanley Cup champion in the near future. So that is kind of the thing you have to look at it with all of this. And let's take a look at a few more details here of this contract. I'll share it over here from my good friends over at Puckpedia. So again, Jacob Markstrom on the last year of his current 6-year pact that he signed back with the Calgary Flames, $6 million cap hit. Next contract that was signed back on Halloween, $6 million cap hit over the next 2 years. He will be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the 27-28 season, and he will be 38, almost 39 years of age by the time that contract comes to an end. I think it's very, very likely that Jacob Markstrom is going to end up retiring as a New Jersey Devil when this contract runs up. And as you can see here, cap hit is exactly $6 million for the next 2 years. He also does have a modified 20-team no trade list. So, and again, it's very unlikely that we are going to see Jacob Markstrom get traded at any point during the rest of this deal. So, one thing I'll really say here before I give my opinion, so far stats-wise for Jacob Markstrom, 3-2-0 with a 4.17 goals against average and 8.875 save percentage. Not good by any stretch of the imagination. But let me just say this. Couple things. Number one, I am totally fine with this deal because it's only 2 years. It's not a long time. But you're locking down your goaltending tandem of Markstrom and Jake Allen for at least the next 2.5 seasons, 2 1/3 seasons, or 2 3/4 seasons, whatever the case may be, well over 2 years from now. You know that this is the guys you want to go with to make that run to winning a Stanley Cup. You're giving your young goaltenders more time to develop. Maybe not as much for Nico Daws, as now I'm sure the trade rumors about him are probably going to come up even more because he's not gonna be with the team. He probably is not gonna get very many opportunities moving forward, but you never know. You never know, and you can never have too many good goaltenders. That's the way I look at it. But the money isn't that bad. It's only $12 million over the next 2 years. Salary cap going up. It's not really that big of a deal. Term-wise, again, also not that big of a deal. And yes, it is a risk because him being in his mid to late 30s now, you wonder, especially from what we've seen so far, other than the game in LA, you wonder to yourself, is it the beginning of the major decline for Jacob Markstrom? And I get that. You wonder that, and that's going to be a factor. One thing I do want to point out that Daniel Moya of the Hockey Writers put out yesterday talking about Jacob Markstrom, he said out of 48 eligible goalies with 4+ games played, the Devils' Jacob Markstrom ranks 5th in high danger save percentage per money puck. And almost all of his goals allowed have been low danger, which indicates more fluky / unlucky than anything. What I take from that is that Jacob Markstrom in the early goings here has had some bad luck with some of the goals he's given up. It's not been fully on him. It's not. And I think over time here, as he gets more settled into the season, he's going to get back to that form that we've seen before. That's my confidence. I can understand the concern from other people, but that is my confidence with this whole thing. Just wanted to point that out there. So overall, I'm not upset about it. Perfectly fine. It's good to get him locked in. We don't have that uncertainty. And the one other thing I want to point out is this. There aren't that many better options out in the market via free agency and damn sure not in trade because goalies don't get traded that often. You know, a good goalie is like having a top flight running back. It doesn't come out very, very often, but when it does, you really want to try to find every way to keep them around as long as possible here because especially when you get in the playoffs, goaltending is so very, very, very important. So it was important for the Devils and Tom Fitzgerald to get that locked down as Fitzgerald continues to lock down the important guys. I know Kevin Weeks talked about, oh, well, what's next about Nico Hischier? Nico Hischier can't sign a contract extension until July 1st of next year. Just keep that in mind. So nobody get mad about, oh, we haven't gotten a Hischier extension yet. He literally is not legally allowed to until July 1st. And I believe fully that will happen, but we'll get to that when we get to that. And that's a long way from now. But overall, I'm really much content with this contract extension. Let me know what you guys think of it. Would really like to hear your opinions here on YouTube and also on our social media platforms. All right. So before we continue on here with the second half of our episode, I want to give another quick ad read shout out to our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook. And so here we go. Hockey is back. And this season, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, brings you all the speed, skill, and nonstop action you love. DraftKings Sportsbook delivers the unmatched intensity of the NHL right to your fingertips, from player props to the thrill of live in-game betting. Every drop of the puck is your shot to win big. And I always say, guys, especially if you're new, you can do something as simple as betting on who you think is going to win the game. And yeah, you could go into other props of like over under on shots on goal for a team or player, or if someone's going to score in the game or block a shot or make a save, whatever. But I would say betting on which team to win is the simplest and easiest way to get yourself going in terms of understanding sports betting, especially in this day and age. And DraftKings has a great offer for new customers. This one is for you. All you got to do is bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get paid out in $300 in bonus bets instantly. This is a deal you can't pass up, folks. You really, really can't. I use DraftKings, and you absolutely should use it as well. And if you want to get in the action, all you got to do is light the lamp all season long with DraftKings by downloading the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boo Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, pass through a per wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, see DraftKings/audio.com/audio. Limited time offer. Copyright NHL 2025. All rights reserved. All right. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, wanted to bring up something from someone on Twitter who, again, in my opinion, had the best breakdown of where the Devils are now that we have played 13 games of the season. It comes from Devils Red Alert on Twitter. A lot of you Devils fans already know about Devils Red Alert. Great guy over there. Does a great job of breaking down a lot of different things from, about the Devils, especially from a fan's perspective. He's a must follow. Absolute must follow. And so Devils Red Alert posted this, and I'll read the whole thing to you on his thoughts on the team so far. And again, I think he was spot on. He said, quote, "We desperately need at least Pesci and ideally Kovacevic healthy for the defense to play its best. Balance isn't there right now. Completely agree. Completely agree. The defense is out of whack with some of our main guys being out right now. Nemec is very shaky. Luke is a little underwhelming. Siegs is bad. Hopefully these things will change." And again, he's absolutely right. Those three guys have to find a way to get better defensively here to just make this defense better and back to where it was earlier in the year. We need another center. Glendening isn't great. Bring someone in at the trade deadline and move Glass to 4C. Not opposed to that. I think Glendening has been fine, but I also get where people are where he's coming from in terms of just being a bit more, I guess adding a bit more depth in terms of scoring would be nice. Palat looks cooked, like extra cooked. Need the Donut back ASAP. I agree with that completely. Andre Palat has to go. And I don't know if and when that's going to happen. It just feels so frustrating to be forced fed Andre Palat playing on that first line with Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt. He just can't do anything. And I think about that game at San Jose, 3 different opportunities, point blank, A+ opportunities to score, and he wasn't doing it. And I'm so sick and tired of having to try to have some hope that he can figure out a way to get going. It's not going to happen. It just will not happen. Mercer is back. This is the best he's looked in years. The man is one of the top goal scorers in the league right now. He's got 8 goals. He almost has the same amount of goals as Jack Hughes right now, who's tied for first in the league. Dawson Mercer has stepped up big playing on that wing side along with Nico Keisher and Timo Meyer. Do not touch that line. Do not touch it. I'm talking to Sheldon Keefe. Do not touch it. Let it continue to cook. Jack is still Jack. If he stays healthy, he's going to have an insane season. Gritsuk is far and beyond what we could have expected. He looks like a complete player and has proved he belongs right away. He has done awesome. He has really been awesome. Even when he's playing on a third line or even a fourth line at times, which we've seen, it doesn't matter where he plays, he makes impact plays. Doesn't always score, doesn't always get points, but he is always making plays. He looks so unbelievably comfortable in the NHL, and he's only played 13 games so far. It's really, really great to see. Connor Brown has been awesome. Him plus Grits and eventually Cody Glass will really improve the depth on this team. Really want to see that line come together like we saw earlier in the year. Those guys really did a fantastic job, particularly Gritsuk and Connor Brown, as Devil's Red Alert points out. The goalies, overall solid, but this team needs to play defense or it won't matter who's in net. Abso-freaking-lutely. Absolutely. It doesn't matter. Even Martin Brodeur in his prime could be back there, and the Devils' defense still needs to be better. Because again, with the amount of breakdowns and the leakiness of everything, it just is not good. And I know that the Devils have injuries on the back end, but there's still no excuse to still even be at least half decent back there. So hopefully Bradshaw and Co. can use next couple days to practice, work on some things, and be better for that game on Thursday night. So shout out to Devil's Red Alert for, again, like I said, a really great and almost perfect breakdown of where the Devils are right now, what needs to improve moving forward. Last but certainly not least here, as we normally do, it's going to give you a quick look at the schedule ahead. So again, the Devils only have 2 games this week as they begin a 3-game homestand, and then they go on another long road trip in the middle of next week. But their next game will be on Thursday night at home against the Montreal Canadiens. And then Saturday afternoon, I believe I will be in attendance for that one. It is a 12:30 p.m. showdown at home against the surprisingly good Pittsburgh Penguins. So we shall see how it goes with that one. And then they'll wrap up the homestand next Monday, and we'll talk about that in the next episode. But next Monday against the young and very impressive Matthew Schaefer-led New York Islanders, who are coming off a big come-from-behind win last night at home against the Columbus Blue Jackets. So not as many games this week, but I think the Devils needed some time to rest, recover, and get themselves, ready to refocus here and try to get back to their winning ways, especially continuing their success at home. On that note, Devils fans, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Devil State of Mind podcast. As always, guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check out the episodes. Really do appreciate it. Make sure to leave a like on this video if you're here on YouTube. If you like what you see, subscribe if you're new, and tell all of your friends to do the same. We are so close, 2 subscribers away from 170, and we're also just 32 subscribers away from 200. Continue to subscribe if you haven't already. Share with family and friends. Would really, really appreciate you guys continuing to help grow the podcast here on YouTube. Also, check out the podcast wherever you listen to it on audio, Apple, Spotify, Google, SoundCloud, wherever. And if you're on Apple or Spotify, do me a favor and leave a 5-star rating on either one. Continues to help grow the podcast and get it out to many, many more Devils fans and hockey fans like yourself out there. Would mean a whole hell of a lot to me if you could do that. And also make sure to follow the podcast for more content over on our social media platforms. Devil State of Mind over on Facebook and Instagram, and Devil State over on Twitter. Make sure to follow the podcast for clips and other breakdowns on TikTok at Neil.Villapiano. And so it's just my name, Neil.Villapiano. And also follow my BlueSky account, Neil Villapiano, to get Devils updates and podcast updates as well over there. So that's where you can check out the podcast. But again, thank you all so very much for hanging out on this edition of the Devil State of Mind podcast. And we will see you in the next episode. Everyone, relax. It's all good. Devils still very much towards the top of the league. Couple of frustrating losses, but this week, big opportunities to bounce back and get going again. Everyone, continue to be the awesome people that you are. And as I always say at the end of every episode, put those horns up, baby. and let's go, Devils.